presented by Scott Credit Union. Yours.
BlueNote City 2 Fan Report. Aloha and mahalo. I am Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, and welcome to the show that is about St. Louis sports. Not going to be alone today. I got my friend, my buddy, my pal, the one, the only, the Mr. Lance to Scott from the drop. How are you doing today, Lance to Scott?
Not too bad, Guy. How are you?
Not bad at all, man. A lot going on in the hockey world. Jim Thomas did a hockey chat today, and I was reading it, and I don't know what it is with St. Louis fans. They want to trade Tarasenko fucking tomorrow, and I don't get it. I don't get it. The guy just had one of his best seasons ever, and you want to trade him.
I think the smart ones are thinking, okay, the Blues have O'Reilly coming due. They have Tarasenko coming due. If they want to keep Perron, they got to pay Perron. I think the smart ones are thinking, well, maybe they should trade him to get something for him. But there are those out there that no matter what a great season he had, they're still going to want to trade the guy. And I don't understand it. If they trade him, I'll understand. If they sign him, I'll understand it. It's just, but some of these fans out there, once they get on a guy, you remember Jake Allen. Jake Allen could have a game where he gave up 2 goals and won 5-2, and the fans would be on him because of the 2 goals he gave up.
Yep. Yeah, no, that is an absolute, my friend. That's an absolute. Now, see, for me, yes, I have a love affair with Tarasenko. I admit it. I got that love affair, and that's okay. But at the same time, I look at the guy, and I go, his play doesn't warrant what happened. And look, this is all, and I'll call him out on this. This is all Jeremy Rutherford. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Rutherford messed this up, and I don't know. He still does it. He still has this.
Still doing it.
He puts in things, and it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what Tarasenko did to Rutherford other than maybe not talk to him. But there was no reason. I'm sorry. Rutherford took this story, and I think he made it more about him than he did about what the story really was.
Yeah, because you and I know the full story, and if he was to write that, people go, "Oh, okay." But the way he wrote it, it made it sound like the Blues were the Blues were were just shocked, and Tarasenko demanded a trade and screamed and yelled and okay, we'll go ahead and give you a trade. Give us 10. That's not what happened. You and I know that.
It's not.
But that's the way he made it
sound. It's not even close to what happened.
No, it's not. And I don't understand it because when a writer does that, they're starting down a slippery slope, because if they're going to do it once, twice, 3 times to the same player, it's going to happen again. And I don't think as an organization, you really want somebody like that. Yeah, you got guys like Andy Strickland that follow the company line, and Andy Strickland puts out what the Blues want him to.
Well, that's because now here's the difference. Andy Strickland gets paid for by the Blues.
That's right. There is a difference. That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
But Rutherford thrives. His career is going because of the Blues. That's the main part of his career. And I just don't understand. And, because of the stuff he's put out, there's a few other people around the league in Canada and so on and so forth. I saw a Russian article a friend sent me from Russia, and they don't understand it. They're not sure what the deal is, why they would want Tarasenko gone.
No, Tarasenko basically, and we've talked about this, right? And Ryan Green asked a good question. You know what, Ryan? My answer is I don't know. At that point in their careers, when they're both in their 31 and 32, who would I rather keep? I'll be honest. What O'Reilly brings in the locker room, I think Tarasenko now brings. What
I think what you have to look at is this. Is Tarasenko fully healed? And from what I've been told and from watching him, I think he is. Could he have another shoulder surgery? Sure, but Kyrou could get a shoulder surgery. Tom, it could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And now, if Guy, I think Tarasenko is going to get traded, and you and I disagree on that. But I will
absolutely do.
Yeah, I will tell you this: if somebody told me right now they were the same age with the type of players they are, okay, you can sign one for 5 years or sign the other for 5 years. Which would you do? I'm going to tell you right now, I'd sign Tarasenko, and here's why.
Absolutely.
Here's why. Tarasenko is a little beefier and can play a little more physical than O'Reilly. Number one, he stepped up his defensive game over the last 5-6 years, and he is really what I call a two-way player. Some people may disagree with me. O'Reilly is a two-way player. He doesn't have the body to stay that physical. He's got the body somewhat of an Alex Steen. And we all saw what happened to Alex Steen at around 34 years old. The guy can't tie his shoes now, like you said the other night. And I think Tarasenko would be a better investment over 5 years than O'Reilly would. And I love O'Reilly. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they were to trade Tarasenko and sign O'Reilly, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But for me, and let's say the money's the same, the term's the same, I'm keeping Tarasenko.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm with you there. Because here's the thing. It doesn't matter how old they are.
Mm-mm.
Goal scorers are goal scorers.
That's right.
Hull with Arizona out of shit could still score goals.
Well, look at his last couple of years in Detroit. The guy could still score goals, and he wasn't a young man. Hey, Tarasenko at 35 probably put up 40, 50 points, 20 goals, 30 assists, 25, 25. I think Tarasenko will be one of those guys that even if he stays in the league till 37, he'll still be scoring goals. Not what he's doing now, but he'll still be a guy that's on a third line, a fourth line that can give you some minutes, and he'll give you quality minutes.
Yeah, no, I am with that. I am with that completely, right? Goal scorers score goals, and they know how to score goals, and it doesn't go away. Gretzky with the Rangers was still scoring goals, even when he said, "I'm done."
Mm-hmm.
He was still putting up points. He was still putting the puck in the back
of the net. I will tell you
this,
Gretzky could have hung on if he wanted to, probably 2 or 3 more years.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
But he's the greatest player ever, and to me, nobody's ever going to pass his points ever. Yeah. I mean, it's like you and I talked about. Take away his goals, and he's still the points leader in the NHL. I mean, nobody's ever going to be able to say that. I love some of these guys today, but it's just not going to happen. But you're right. We've seen guys score 30 to 50 goals, and at age 35, 36, they're still scoring 18 to 24 goals. Yeah. If you can do that at 36, teams are going to want you.
Yeah, no, and I will take and look, I like what O'Reilly does. Mm-hmm. I like what he brings. Mm-hmm. In 2018-19, in 1920, O'Reilly brought a type of leadership that the St. Louis Blues had not seen or had in a very, very, very long time. I think you got to go all the way back to McGinnis.
Yeah, you do. McGinnis
to find that type of leadership in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Tarasenko this season has become that guy. Mm-hmm. He's bringing you that same type of leadership. It has rubbed off on Tarasenko.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, a lot of people don't believe this, but Tarasenko's a very peppy guy in the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
He's not a real negative guy. When they lose, it kills him. Trust me, it kills him.
Oh, I know. You can see it. You can see it in his face when they do that, right?
Which I love. You want a guy that, even if he plays well and gets 2 goals and the team loses 4-2, you want a guy to be able to be sad about it, because you want him to put the team first. And I think O'Reilly and Tarasenko both do that. I think that's why O'Reilly's numbers since he's been captain have went down a little bit, because he feels like he's got to set the right example, set the right tone. Maybe don't take as many chances as he used to before. Because I think if he didn't have the C, I think
he puts too much weight on his own shoulders every game.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's one thing Tarasenko does, and I don't know, and he's done this for a long, long time. First of all, if he's a starter, he does not stand with the starters. He stands at the bench with the team. He has done that for a long time. Yeah. I think that's something his dad taught him.
Could be.
I think that's something his dad taught him. But the other thing he does, and he does this win or lose, he is the last guy to go in the locker room.
Yeah. And I think it was his grandpa, because he's a lot closer to his grandpa than his father.
Yeah. But he stands at the gate, even on a loss. He's patting guys. Okay, man. Yeah, we got to do better. He does that, and he's been doing it a lot. And to me, that's the type of player that's the player that I think glorifies or signifies what the Blues are.
Yeah, and
have always been a blue collar team.
Yeah, and O'Reilly does it too. Guy and I aren't saying we don't like O'Reilly. It's just that same money, same term, about the same age. You got to take a goal scorer, because goals are hard to come by in this league.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I agree with this. Yeah, and like I talked about it yesterday, and I know, Bob Morton was on, and he was giving me a little grief on it. The turnaround of this season, that the seasonal moment. You always look at a season, and you try and find that one moment that signifies what the season was, and I don't think anybody can argue with me. It's got to be Tarasenko getting right in front of Berube and chewing him out, saying, "No, we don't do that." I mean, he stood up to Berube. Mister Berube's the guy that's going to whip him into shape. Here's Tarasenko right in front. No. We don't do that. When he was chewing out Robert Thomas. I think that was in late March when they were having a bad season. Look at April and May. They had an amazing April and May.
They were one of the best teams in April and May in the whole league. Yeah,
absolutely. And to me, that's what flipped it. What was that moment that Tarasenko stepped up? Well, you know what? I don't blame them. They can, but they've got so many more things wrong with their team that it's not. And you know what? And here's something that I think the NHL will take a look at. Did you see the list of injuries that Tampa had? Did you see that four of them were during the Colorado season?
Yep.
Did you see the list of injuries that Edmonton had? 3 of them were during the Colorado season. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins injured during the Colorado season, right? The Blues had Krug. Wasn't Krug injured during the Colorado season? The first game?
No, he was injured. No, he was injured in the Minnesota series.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody besides Bennington was injured during the Colorado season.
I can't think of who it was because they went back to the locker room during the game.
Yeah, it might have been. Because
I can picture him.
Scandella.
Scandella. Scandella.
Right? Might have been Scandella, and then Falk was. I think Falk missed the game. Maybe.
I think Scandella got hurt in the Wild Series too because we were all wondering if he was going to be back in time for the Avalanche series.
The Avalanche injured so many guys. I mean, they really did go out there. Now, the Avalanche had their share of injuries too. I know that, right? And we took a guy out. Barbashev's hit to the sternum. I don't know. Did you see it yesterday when I was talking about the article from the hockey writers about the 5 players that the Blues could use as trade bait?
I read it. Yeah.
How many of those names do you agree with? I only agreed with one of them.
I will tell you this: to get anything decent in return, it got to be Tarasenko. That's the only person they're going to get a good return on. Now, the other one, and I think he's a product of Berube's system too, because he's that kind of player. He can score 20 goals a year.
Who?
Barbashev. Costin because he hasn't proven anything. Somebody may get a third.
That's the only one. That's the only one of those 5 that I was okay with trading.
Yeah.
Right?
But in my opinion, with the contracts they got coming up after this contract with Barbashev is up, they're going to have a hard time keeping him because if he continues to score like he does and play like he does, somebody's going to offer that boy some money.
And you know what? And that's possible. And if he does put up a season like that, because he's not. Is he an RFA this year or is he a UFA next year?
I think it's a UFA after next season. You can look it up.
Let me look it up. I think he's one of next season's ones.
I think so. He's got 1 year left.
Okay. Yeah, Barbashev is a UFA next season, right? And he's making 2.5 right now. 2.25, 2.25. So if he starts putting up one of those type of years, right? Then trade deadline, I can see trading him.
Yeah, I would understand that. Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, who else was on there? Scandella was on there. Look, guys, as much as you want to get rid of Scandella, nobody's taking Scandella.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you one thing right now. I know for a fact within the Blues offices,
they like him.
Armstrong and Berube love Marco Scandella.
So I think Scandella does a lot more good than people give him credit for. On the surface, they see his mistakes.
I'll tell you this.
On the surface, they don't see what he does.
You know what he reminds me of, but on a defenseman? When he makes a mistake, it's a bad mistake. Kind of like Sanford. When Sanford made a mistake, it was a bad mistake.
Yeah, it ended up in the back of the net.
Marco Scandella, is much better than people think.
I agree. I've been saying that all along.
Is he a top 4 defenseman? No. Is he a top 6? Yes, I think he is a top 6 guy.
I think you could squeeze him in the top 4. I think you could squeeze him in the top 4. I think he would be a bottom 3. I think he would be that 4. Right? I think he would be that number 4.
4 or 5, he's close there.
Right? I think you can play him in that number 4. My buddy, and I haven't talked to him in a while, Foley, and his first name just slips me. You know what I'm talking about.
Shockley?
No, Foley from he does drafts.
Yeah, Tim Foley?
No, hold on a second.
Name? I always get his first name confused too.
Yeah, and I do too. And Gabe Foley.
Yeah, Gabe. I've got a couple draft guys that are probably going to be around when the Blues come up, and most of them are defensemen because we know Berube and
see, that's the thing. I was looking at. He just released like the top 4 rounds worth.
Yeah,
I was looking at that. And you look at from 20 to 25, and that's what you got to look at because it's not going to go. Somebody's going to take somebody lower than where they're at.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I've told people it isn't a strong, high talented draft. It's a solid, deep, average. It's a solid draft where you can get guys to play top 6, bottom. It's those type of players that can give you good minutes that you need on a team.
There are NHL players all the way through to the 4th round in this draft.
I would think so. Are they going to be superstars? Maybe one of them will surprise
Maybe not,
me.
but there are guys that are NHL ready.
Out of
all the way through.
Out of all the draft research I've done, you won't believe how many people. There'll be, let's say, 10 different people like Elite Prospect, Sportsnet, and they've rated the top 50. There's guys, let's say there's 10 of them, number 34, 18, 36, 63, 91, 52. That's how much there's just such a different. I mean, it's a deep draft, but not a highly talented draft.
Yeah, next year is supposed to be the talented draft, but it's not as deep. It's talented in the first round. You're going to get something, and you're not going to get steals. You're going to get steals in this draft in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, maybe even the 5th.
Yeah, I think teams that do well in rounds 2 through 5, 3 years from now, will be better teams in the NHL.
Right. I'm trying to get caught up to where I believe this group of players can do anything this season. Holding off injuries needs to improve. Injuries are going to happen. Injuries aren't the issue.
Yeah,
you know what? Here's what I'm looking at. For me, I'm looking at Springfield, the Thunder Blues. That's a deep. We're a lot deeper with the exception of one position. We're very deep in the minors, right? There's only one position that I feel like we are lacking in. And I think you know what position that is.
Would you say goaltending?
No.
Defense?
I think goaltending we're very strong in the minors.
I didn't think it was goaltending, but I thought you might be going that way. Defense?
Defense.
Yeah.
Right? We just don't have the strength in defense. The one defender we have that intrigues me, right? And hopefully you in July 8th can get down and you can represent the fan report if you want. Matt Kessel.
Yeah.
Matt Kessel really intrigues me. Now, he only played 29 or 27 games, and he got 1 goal. But I like what he brought to the defensive core. He didn't have a lot of defensive mistakes, and he was the highest scoring defenseman in the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This guy's got. He doesn't need a lot of seasoning. I think he may only need half a season down at Springfield before he's ready to come up.
I don't think you'll see him till 23 or 24, probably 24. I really don't.
That depends on what our defense is right now because we don't have anybody else in the system.
I think that you're right, though. Once you have Mikkola and you have Prinovic, who's probably is going to be on the roster this year. Once you take those guys away from the Thunderbirds, it's slim pickings with their defense.
Well, Mikkola wasn't on the Thunderbirds this year at all.
No, not this year. I'm talking about since he came from them. I'm saying players that.
They just don't. We have the one guy that we got from Detroit in the Letty deal, but he's aged out. I think. No, I think that I really do think that Kessel is going to see. He's going to see ice time this year. He's going to get his 9 games, if not more. Right? I really do. I think that he's going to get some time. Neighbors to me is the one. Everybody wants Neighbors, and I don't. I'm like the one idiot out there that sees Neighbors and says, "Not yet." Right? Maybe I'm wrong, but I want Neighbors to get that AHL experience, especially with the quality of AHL that we have.
If I'm the Blues, I don't bring him up till the 24-25 season.
Yeah,
23. Yeah, I don't bring him up this year. I bring him up 23-24. Sorry.
23-24. Yeah, that's what I'm at. I bring him up if there's injuries to bring him up.
Yeah, if you're forced to do it, you've got to do it.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't. Brian Green says, but he isn't ready.
No.
He had a good 9 games. No, I agree. If he would have come out like a house on fire, yeah, keep him. But he didn't. And he didn't seem to fit in in the lower guys, the guys that were in that same position of him. He just didn't seem to fit in, and he never seemed to get up the speed of the game. He never did.
Yeah, because like I told you, you play in the AHL and you come up to the NHL, you're like, holy crap.
He didn't even play in the AHL. He was in juniors. He wasn't old enough to play in the AHL.
I'm talking about when he goes to the AHL. It's going to be, and if you're going from juniors to the NHL, it's like going from a person that makes $500 a month to a person that makes $20 million a month.
Yeah,
a huge difference in your life. And I watched him in those 9 games, and did I see some great things? I saw some very good things from a guy probably shouldn't be able to do those things at his age, but you can still see some holes in him, and he needs some more seasoning, like you said. Give him 1 more year, a year and a half, whatever. But if they hold him back too much past that, if they hold him back 2 years, I think it's too long.
He's a Thompson. He's Tage Thompson.
Yeah.
Right? He's Tage Thompson, except now we have room for Tage Thompson.
Yeah, and he's not as tall and lanky as Tage Thompson, but I'm going to tell you, he's more talented.
But he's the same. He's that player. Thompson was an NHL-ready player. Okay? The Blues didn't have room on his roster for him. Right? Jeremy Rutherford asked a good question today, with it being, the 10-year anniversary of the, Blues ownership. What was the last bad trade the Blues did? And then he clarified it with bad trade, meaning it didn't work out for either side. Right? And for me, the worst trade we did was the worst trade with his clarification is Ryan Miller.
That was terrible.
But here's a take that I know most people won't get. I think the worst trade that we've made is the O'Reilly trade. Look, O'Reilly has been fantastic for us, and I get that. No player out there, O'Reilly was not worth 5 players. That was my issue. O'Reilly was not worth 5 players.
Well, you have to look at it this way. 2 of those guys, I knew weren't going to last much longer.
I get it. But you know what? Those 2 guys could have been traded elsewhere for other things. O'Reilly, to me, was worth Thompson and the 2 picks. Now, do I mind that they got rid of Sobotka and Berglund? No, I don't. But if that's who you were going to give away, you keep the picks. It 5 for 1 to me never feels right. The money didn't even work. The money to me didn't even work. I mean, we gave him a huge raise, a great contract, but the money didn't work to me. I just felt like it just wasn't. We gave up too much, right? And again, I get that those pieces weren't going to be there, but there were other things you could have gotten with those pieces. Those pieces still could have been used elsewhere. That's my point there.
Yeah, they could have been. I'm sure you could have made a trade with somebody else for a different player because, and like you and I have talked about
Laterra for Shin.
Yeah, and it's like you and I have talked about before. Tage Thompson, as long as Berube was here, he was never going to, even if he put him in the lineup, he wasn't going to thrive like he did in Buffalo. Wasn't going to do it. So I
get that, and I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. My issue is the 5 for 1, right? He was not worth 5 players to me.
Yeah.
He's been great. It's not that we didn't get a great player, but we could think of what else we might have gotten if we do Thompson and 2 picks and then take Berglund and Sobotka and package him with something else.
Yeah, I think he had to do it because there was one other team, and I don't remember who it was, that was close to getting O'Reilly. And it may have been Boston, if I remember correctly. I can't remember. But there was one other team that was close. And I think what it come down to is Armstrong said, I want him. We're not going to use these guys. If I've got to give up picks, we need a guy like this to win a cup. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, so, I mean, it could have been a bidding war, and I get that. But that's just how I feel about it. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right. No, it's not that I don't like giving anyone away. I'll tell you what. Here you go. There are only, I'd say right now, I think there are 3 players in the league that are worth 5-player deal. 5-1. I think there's 3 players that are worth 5-1 to me. Right? McDavid, Matthews, Ovechkin. I cannot name another player in the league that's worth 5 players to me.
Well, you want my personal opinion? I think Ovechkin at this age, I think he'd only get 4 players.
Okay.
Because of his age.
All right.
Yeah, I think McDavid. You might get somebody. I think you could get 4 for Draisaitl, and if somebody was really desperate, I mean, very desperate, Edmonton could get 5 for him, but they'd have to be really desperate.
Hoffman wasn't worth 5 guys. We got Hoffman for a steal.
No, he's saying Hoffman wasn't worth it. Is what I think.
We didn't trade Hoffman. Well, he's going that I love Hoffman so much. Right? We got Hoffman at $4 million was a steal to me.
I know.
Even in a short season.
I don't understand why people hate him so much. He put up 20+ goals for $4 million. And if Berube would have used him better in the first 4 or 5 months of the season, he would have been a 30+ goal scorer, guaranteed. And he started playing defense, which he had never done before.
Yeah. No, he would have. I think given better opportunities, he would have done much better and stayed in St. Louis.
Yeah, I think
now, if he stays in St. Louis, we don't get either Buchnevich or Saad, which I think it would be Saad. I think Saad's the one that we don't get.
I think Saad's the one we wouldn't get.
Right? I still think we can get Buchnevich, but I don't think we get Saad. No, I really liked Hoffman. I liked Hoffman's game. I liked what he did. We're about 30 minutes in, and I want to spend about 15 minutes or 10 minutes or so talking about St. Louis City soccer. You good with that, Lance?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Let's talk about St. Louis City soccer. They are doing, man. That I talked to one of their media people today, and I can't get into it too deep, but we are working, or I am at least trying to get a coaches show going. Right? Coaches or a player show or a weekly show going. And I think you guys would love this. I think, not only that, I talked to them about some of the groups where there were some negative things. And they, like, I brought up the music, right? That I've heard some guys not happy with this, the guy they have with the music, right? I can't remember his name. I'd have to, let me see if I could pull it up real quick.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is, they are going to be much better off partnering with somebody like you for a coach's show than one of the big radio stations, because although they're the new guy in town and there's a lot of soccer fans, they're going to get pushed aside by the Cardinals. They're going to get pushed aside by the Blues. They're going to be 3rd, 4th down on the list. With Guy, they're going to be pretty top there.
No, and I've had some very good conversations with the coach, and I think that it would be good for the fan base to have that personal touch, to be able to talk to the coach right now. And look, no one likes the COVID world. No one likes it, but it is what it is, right? So you cannot be as up close and personal as you used to be. But there's ways, and I think my show allows us to be up close and personal, even when you can't be. And that's what that's what I'm trying to sell to them, is being able to do that in a more mastermind. That's it. Mastermind is the guy that's going to be doing the music, right? He's a St. Louis-based artist. He's rap. Some of his stuff is controversial. I don't want to say controversial, but heavy. I appreciate that, bud. We'll get back to hockey in a minute. Yeah, sorry. You know what, Kevin? I got to do what's going to make. And look, I get that I'm more hockey than I am anything else. But right now, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this. I'm looking further down the road. One of the issues is the St. Louis Blues do not look at guys like me as real media. Okay? They don't. They don't look at Lance's media. They don't look at even game time. They won't give game time seats. They won't give the St. Louis Let's Go Blues radio seats. They won't give any of that. I see you, bud. They won't give any of that. So the fact that St. Louis City is recognizing me as a member of the media, that's going to make it harder for the Blues to not recognize me as a member of the media. So if I get my foot in with them, it's going to be a lot harder for the Blues to turn around and say, well, you're not a credit. Well, wait a minute. City thinks I am. I'm holding a coach's show. I'm holding a player's show with them. It gives me better standing, right? So I will talk soccer more later. Got to get back to hockey because we got a treat for you, Shaggy. Woo! Shagalicious. Hey, how are you doing, Shaggy?
Tired. Becoming a dad is a new thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, well, congratulations, my friend.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Actually, it's interesting. Like, this is literally perfect timing so that my kid could come into a new season. Yeah. You know what I mean? Did not have to go through.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Rangers had a good season. You cannot look. I don't
look
at
No. I'm not saying. One second. I'm not saying it's a bad season. I mean, they didn't. He could start off from scratch and see them win the cup right away. He doesn't have to watch another playoff.
Well, that's the thing. You actually, when you have a kid, you don't want him. You want him to be bad for the first 4 or 5. You want the kid to be old enough to be able to remember it. So, But my problem was when my daughters were at that point where they understood hockey, I got moved here and didn't watch hockey because it was impossible to watch. So I didn't get to talk to you about Game 7. And look, it was a tough loss. But for me, I thought the Rangers played very well in that series and had a chance to win it.
Well, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you like this. And this is something that is going to be a very big learning lesson for the Rangers. They came into the season with very low expectations of getting to that point, and they got there. They played, what was it? They only got like 4 or 5 days off between, series, right? But in total, okay? And they are tired out. They get to that game, they get to this Lightning series, and they're already tired. They go up 2-0. You have a chance to go up 3-0 while you're even a team that's tired out, and you're playing a Lightning team with Vasilevsky. Okay, you won the first game 6-2. You win the first game, by the hair on your chinny chin chin, and then you get to the third game and you had a chance to win it, and you almost went up 3-0 on them, right? By the time you got to Game 4, you were so tired that the rest of the series, the Lightning played with you. You were so behind them because the Lightning were not looking good, but they were playing the perfect team to play against, a tired, young team. And they were easily going to win that series. My wife actually told me at the beginning of the series, Rangers will go up 2-0, and then the Lightning will sweep. And she got it right.
Yeah, no, for me, I if the Rangers win that series, if they force Game 7 and win that series, they're getting swept by the Avalanche. I seen that, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the way the Avalanche were. The Rangers couldn't match their speed, and Shesterkin's, I'm saying it wrong again.
Shesterkin
is not Vasilevsky, right? And I think that they would have gotten swept. I did pick them to win. I picked them to win the series, right? Wrong, but I picked them to win the series.
Well, I'll tell you, the most frustrating part of the playoffs, I think, was more like some of the moves that the coach made that I sometimes looked at and went, "What are you doing?" But again, I'm not complaining because we got so far. You look at a Blues team where it was like it was a frustration of also you had to play much better teams than us, and you still played really well against an Avalanche team that you saw just destroyed. You guys put up more of a fight than the Lightning.
Yeah, I think so.
The Lightning did not look good. And by the way, I think Cooper is very possibly gone. I think that they're going to even try to get rid of a lot of their players because they are old and they're not going to go places at this point. Teams already are playing faster than them.
Well, they're already trying to get rid of McDonough. They want somebody to take him, and they're willing to pay at least half of his salary.
Well, they have to.
Well,
they're so far over the cap already.
Well, he's already more than just a veteran. He's a guy just waiting to retire. So
he's
a guy that you anyways want to get rid of no matter what. Right. He's like the Joe Thornton of certain teams. Like, he's not a guy that you're keeping on your team to try to bring you to the next level. He's the guy sitting on your team and you just say, well, you're our old guy. You're going to, be the veteran to put our young guys in place. I wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Coyotes go after him to try to get themselves a nice veteran. Maybe the Senators, try to get themselves some nice players. Because McDonough plays well, but he's still really old. He's
it's
the next couple of years.
Well, the Lightning's run is over. They only have 16 players. I was looking at this yesterday. They have 16 players on roster, and they're still $1.5 million over the cap. Right? You can't have you. I mean, when you're sitting at that point, it really, really hurts you. No, they have 19 players, and they're almost $2 million over the cap. Right? They've got to drop $2 million in salary just to get in, and can't add anybody. They can't even field a full team with what they have on the roster right now.
Well, the Avalanche are even worse.
Right.
No, the Avalanche aren't that bad. The Avalanche have 26 million to spend amongst 12 players, and that's just going to be hard for them, right? The worst team is Vegas. Vegas only has 16 players on the roster, and they're $2.6 million.
But that guy, all the idiots and odds makers are giving them great odds to win the cup.
I know.
I don't understand that at all. Who is telling these guys this crap?
Well, first of all,
I don't know, man.
Was this ESPN or Bleacher Report? Because if you listen to any of those guys, I cannot stand. I'm not against them, but I've seen the most ridiculous things that have come up on some of these things.
I actually think it was Caesars Gaming or MGM Gaming that had that.
When you hear Caesars Gaming and stuff like that for betting, never look at their information about any of their things. In my opinion, Vegas is going to be a better team than they were this year. They're not winning the cup. No way. In my opinion, you have to watch out for teams that if the Blues could maybe work on their depth and stay healthy, they're a team to watch out next year.
Yeah, they're going to be one of the best. Hey, let me welcome to the show Danny from the Elas Orkin fan club. Or is it Donnie? I'm sorry. Donnie or Danny? It's hard for me to see, bud.
All good. I get it. It's Donnie.
Okay. Donnie, right?
Yeah.
With the O?
Donnie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donnie, welcome to the BlueNote fan report. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Guy. How are you doing?
I'm doing, man. I'm doing. We're just kind of talking. We open topics tonight. We're even talking a little soccer, man.
That's great.
St. Louis City Soccer, our new expansion team has given me press credentials, and we're working on trying to get a coach a show. So I was talking about that a little bit. What's your opinion? You're an Eastern Conference guy.
Yeah.
You and Shaggy. What are your guys' opinions of the Eastern Conference for next year? Who's going to be the division or the team to look out for in the East next season?
The Rangers.
Well,
One second. I'm going to say, of course, I'm going to say the Rangers, but because we have Ilya Sorokin on here, I'm going to give my shocking information here.
Which is?
I hate the Islanders, okay?
It's not really surprising I hate the Rangers.
And I'm going to explain to you something about the Islanders. And I've watched a lot of their games because my wife's an Islander fan. So I've taken her to Islander games. So I've seen I've seen their games very close up, and I've watched their games a lot because she's watching them a lot. They have some fantastic players on that team. They got messed over last year by a schedule, by a COVID outbreak, and by crazy injuries I have no clue why they happened. Okay, between all that, the team was destined to look terrible. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If they could clean up all these old guys on the roster and instead fill it with their younger players, that's a team you want to watch always out for, because they have Ilya Sorokin, who ended the season with the second best save percentage. And as you see, the better goalies make the cup. The better goalies, right? We know that. Look at the Avalanche. They didn't have the better goalie. They did win the cup, but the better goalies, all the good goalies, made the playoffs. That just shows you have a good goalie, and a guy, especially Sorokin, who technically, if maybe he played the whole season, would challenge Shesterkin to the Vezina, which wouldn't happen anyways. But he, at the end of the day, he would have challenged him. When you see that and a team like that, I could see the Islanders being in there. Of course, I see the Hurricanes coming back and a lot of these other teams. The team I do not see making the playoff next year is the Capitals. I think they fall off the map. I think as good as Ovechkin is, they're not going to be around to play around next season. I don't care how good he is. I don't think that's a team to watch out for. You want to talk about teams that are going to do really good? I see the Canadians coming back. They have a top first pick. I can see them making the playoffs, but not getting deep. There are a lot of teams this year where I think could get to the next level, but the problem is cap situations, and the problem is also you have a lot of teams that are good, like the Maple Leafs, but can't seem to break through. And that's sort of because I believe that they depend too much on their stars, and they don't build a roster of winning, and they don't realize that the goalies, again, I'll go back to my point, the goalie will lead your team to a win all day. Look at it. Honestly, between me and you, Donnie, right? You guys had you had a bad situation with Halak and Grice, and you turned that into
This is more on the coaching than on them, but yeah, it was a tough.
No, but you would rather Sorokin and Varlamov over.
Oh, well,
Halak
that's
and
for
Grice.
sure. I take.
Right.
I was waiting for Sorokin to come over for 6 years.
And look how good they looked over 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, Donnie, what do you got for us, bud? I gotta let Donnie talk, bud.
So, the East is interesting because, like Shragi said, obviously you're gonna have the Islanders and the Rangers are gonna be a team. You have a lot of the teams that made the playoffs here are gonna be back. I would say the Rangers, the Hurricanes, and I'm a firm believer that the Penguins will always be in the playoffs until Sidney Crosby retires, because he's just tormented the Eastern Conference for a decade and a half at this point. So at least as an 8 seed, they'll find a way to sneak in. And the Leafs, the Panthers, those are two good teams who are going to be bringing back. Are going to be enough to make the playoffs. Boston, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them, because they brought Bergeron back. There's a chance Krejci might come back under a new head coach if they just hired Jim Montgomery, who did a really good job in Dallas before.
Well, have they hired him yet, or is it still a rumor?
I think it's still a rumor. I don't know if they've officially hired him, but it seems like it's going to be Jim Montgomery. And if it is, I think that's a pretty good.
I don't think it's a good hiring. I don't.
Really?
No, and here's my reasoning for that. It's got nothing to do with Montgomery and his coaching ability. It has everything to do with why he was fired from Dallas. I think it's too soon.
It's possible.
Right?
It's possible.
Because when he was fired from Dallas, a lot of what that incident was did not get out. Okay? He left. Well, it was a mutual departure. Okay? They'll say that he resigned, but he was really fired. There was an incident, and I don't know this 100%. There was an incident that I think the NHL, if it comes out, he's gone. He's going to be fired instantly. Right? That's why I really think that it's too close.
I don't think would be fired. And here's my thing. Okay. What he did, from what I'm told,
hold on.
I know.
Before you get up, remember the issue we still have with Chicago. Chicago cloud that's what over the NHL right now.
I'm aware of that, but those are two separate situations. Hear me out. Okay. The Blackhawks situation was a situation that happened several years, several incidences. It was terrible. Montgomery's is terrible, but it was a one-time screw up. He was drunk. And my thing is, it's not right. What he did is not right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to defend him for what he did. How long does a person pay for what they do that's wrong? Does he pay a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? I mean, can we say that? I mean, I can't.
How long is Coach Q going to pay?
Coach Q's going to pay for years. He may even never get back in the NHL because he let it go for years and years and years.
Actually, no. This was a one.
No,
the Chicago thing was pretty much a.
But the ripple effects of the Black
guy. No, it wasn't. There's other instances with other things that happen. It's much deeper than people think. It wasn't the one guy that was getting sexually harassed. It was several times it happened, and Coach Q knew about it, even though he didn't. And as you said, Guy, he was quoted as saying from the player, I don't have time for this crap. I'm here to win hockey games. Yeah. Montgomery, from the time it happened, it was found out. He apologized for it. It was trying to move on. He feels terrible about it. And, in all honesty, I don't know if Coach Q feels bad about it to this day. He's never come out and said, I'm sorry, I should have done this, and this. I should have told my coaches to do this. That's why I think it's different. He let it happen under his watch. Montgomery should get a job, whether it's this year, next year, whatever.
Well, hold on, Lance. I know where you're going. I want to let Shaggy talk because I got something else to add to this. And sorry, Donnie, I didn't mean to jump all over you.
No, it's all good. I get it.
Right? But hey, it's hockey talk. I'm trying to lead it the best I can. Go ahead, Shag.
You're muted, buddy.
You're muted, bud. We're not hearing you. Shaggy, we're not hearing you. No, we're having trouble with you, Shag. You might want to come out and come back in. Right? Well, the reason why I bring this up is right now, Hockey Canada has a situation similar to this, right? Where 8 players from the 2018 Canada junior team were at a banquet or something, and I don't know what happened or who they were, but it was something that was settled, and Hockey Canada has lost a bunch of sponsors.
No, they're getting screwed right now, and I mean, certainly based on what came out. But
yeah, so they're dealing with all of that, and now you want to add Montgomery and his situation into that?
Hockey Canada, those guys, it's different league. You can't say one situation to the next situation is the same. And that was 8 guys, much different. It was something that was premeditated. Montgomery was drunk at the time it happened. And I'm not excusing him, ladies, if you're watching this. I'm not. Harassment's harassment, okay? But what I'm saying is the guy immediately admitted it to the team, immediately said he was sorry. And I think when somebody really feels that way, they kind of deserve a second chance. He had never been accused of anything like that before. And I just think he deserves a second chance. The guy's been punished. And I'm going to tell you, if he went home to his wife and told her what happened, trust me, he's being punished at home a lot more than we know about. But, Shraggy, go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I think that you also have to look at which team. You also have to look at which team he's coming to. Okay, he's not coming to any small place. He's coming to the Boston Bruins. We're talking about an original 6. We're talking about a team that's a absolutely fantastic place to be, fan-wise. And he's coming to a very serious hockey place. Being that is true, I feel like he's gonna anyways have to straighten out because they're looking to him to take them to the cup. They're giving him one of the best rosters he's ever had. They're not trading Pasta. They're going to keep Marchand. And that team's going to have some of the best stars he's ever dealt with. And that's a serious, serious team to work with. Okay? He's not coming to the Arizona Coyotes. He's not going to a random team. He's going to the Boston Bruins. I figure that's actually the best place for him.
I get all of that. And I don't have an issue hockey-wise. Right? I'm looking at this big picture-wise. And this may be something the NHL just decides they don't want to deal with.
Well, can I say something real quick? The person that's involved with the Montgomery thing, they felt they didn't want to take it any further. That's the difference between the Montgomery thing and the Blackhawk thing. This person was satisfied.
Okay, that could change. That could change when Montgomery gets another head coaching job.
It's not going to. I guarantee it.
Okay, and I hope you understand that I'm not. No, I'm trying to look at this from a wide perspective.
Yeah.
Say again, Shag?
No, I'm saying when you come to a team like the Bruins, okay? When you come to a team like the Bruins, you're not getting any guy to come in. The fact that they fired their coach was because of the way he was running the team was just technically not working. It wasn't a question of personality, okay? He's a good personality, and he has a job. He's gonna get a job. He's gonna be a good coach. Okay. The fact that he's not right now the coach of the Bruins is a question of them having to move on and make this roster and team in general better. They brought a guy in who we know Montgomery's a pretty good coacher. Okay, he could coach. And you're discussing out of the field, unless I see that right away he's poison and toxic. I have to say that him going to the Bruins is a fantastic move for them. They have a roster to give to him.
I don't think hockey standpoint. I think Guy was looking more from a like PR general, what we're trying to do here type thing.
Well,
but from a hockey standpoint,
in a PR sense, let's look at the biggest scandal right now in sports, which is the baseball cheating, right? There's a certain point when everyone just moved on, okay? And the fact that they boo certain players and say certain chants is just something that is the way that fans connect with the sport. And it's not so much as an anger now. It's more of a, oh my gosh, this is fun because the game takes so long. And you could really get at the players, and it's a chance to say what you want. But at the end of the day, you have to get over it. And the fact that they lost.
I hear what you're saying about that, but there's a difference between a cheating thing within, the sport and what happens off these things are like, the guys cheated in a baseball sense, which the Astros, that sucked. I hated that. I hate them for it still. I was at the Mets-Astros game the other day, and I was booing Altuve every time he came to the plate. As you said, partially because it was fun, but partially because I hated him. But at the same time, these are larger just things that are wrong within like the culture of the sport. These are deeper cutting things that have bigger things. Like, I definitely agree that if Montgomery, I think he's been out of coaching for 2.5 years. He got fired in late 2019, early 2020. So he sat out the last 2.5 seasons. So it could be enough time if he really did his due diligence. Like, as you guys said, he admitted it right away. He did the right thing. So it could be in theory that he did, the right amount of time.
Donnie, what happened
as opposed.
Okay. Here's
look,
I get all, hold on.
Nothing, Troggy, nothing.
I understand where you guys are getting at. This is what I'm looking at.
She decided
and again.
They decided
give
not
me
to
a
press
moment.
charges.
Please give me a moment. There is some reporter out there that is going to dig into this. It's going to get dug into. Now, he's been with St. Louis, has an assistant coach for the past 2 years. All right? I get that. I even said when he was hired, I thought it was too early. Right, Lance? Mm-hmm. Am I wrong or right about that?
Yeah, you said that.
Right? I said it was too early. I was concerned about that. If this gets dug into and things come out, it's a PR mess that the NHL does not want. And they're going to deal with it because the 8 guys. Oh, Shaggy,
you got a robot voice, Shaggy.
Yeah.
Robot.
Okay, well, Shag's got to go. Okay, Shag, thanks for showing up, bud. Right, really appreciate it. Yeah, he kind of his internet went out on him. Yeah. And no, all I'm saying is that it matters. The stuff matters, and while coaching wise, he's that guy. It all depends on when and if this comes out, what it is, and how are they going to handle it. And if you're trying to get a team back into the playoffs or into that strength, I know they're going to vet him, but I still think there's a concern in my eyes. Does that make sense, Don?
It makes total sense. So, but anyways, the original thing I was getting at with Boston is, so I think that they were potentially primed. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Pasternak if he doesn't sign an extension, if he really is. Well, if they bring back Krejci, which is apparently what one of the things that he was upset about was how Sweeney handled Krejci's departure, both, from Chechnya. So if they bring back Krejci, does that affect him? Does he sign long terms? That's going to just be interesting to see play out. But Boston has the opportunity to still be a good team. Washington will probably take a bit of a turn, but I think there's still an opportunity. The Eastern Conference had 8 100-point teams, or near, the Caps were the AC, they were near 100 points. But it had to do more with just the bottom of the conference being very weak, I feel like, than the top of the conference. Like, the Islanders finished 9th, but they were never in it last year because they got that horrible start. So, there was like maybe a moment in like April where like the Caps were on a bit of a rough streak. The Islanders won like 3 in a row. And it was kind of like, oh, like it was like, okay, if Washington loses like every game but 6 for the rest of the year and the Islanders go like 15-2 because they have like a bunch of, head-to-heads, they can make it. So the Eastern Conference is actually, I think, more open than it could be. It's going to be interesting to see what teams do. Philly could be primed for, an opportunity to be a disaster next year because they might go and spend some money on some guys, but but then again, they could also get some guys and have that Tortorella bounce back that he'll get in the first 2 years before he wears everyone thin.
Tortorella is going to change that defense around, and in changing that defense around, it's going to make Carter Hart better. Carter Hart has a chance.
They have a chance to really become a solid team because
I think that they could easily jump. They could be one of those teams that jumps into a playoff spot next year.
Yeah, I think the coaching is going to be fine, but I'm not a big fan of their GM. So
yeah, I'm not.
I mean, well, that's the Islanders' problem. Their GM is Lou Lamoriello is lost his mind.
Yeah,
yeah.
Look,
hey, no Scott Stevens, no Martin Brodeur. Lou Lamoriello never wins a cup.
Yeah, like I said, look, the Chara thing was one thing last year, but I mean, when he tries to bring back Scott Niedermayer to play left-hand D on the second pair this year, it's going to be a disaster.
Stupid.
But that's the thing that's frustrating. Like the Islanders, they have an opportunity with what this offseason to potentially get themselves back to being a good team, but I don't trust Lou Lamoriello right now to do it. And I love Lou Lamoriello when he came over. He did what he needed to do. He established a culture within the organization. They don't get Barry Trotz if Lou Lamoriello doesn't become the GM and president. I just don't think he should be the GM anymore. I think he should still be involved in an organization. He is an asset because he runs everything and he gets the most out of what you have. I just don't think he should be the guy making the day-to-day conversation, day-to-day transactions, but he will never give that up because
they haven't hired a coach yet, have they?
No, they hired Lane Lambert.
That's another thing Straggy wasn't talking about. I mean, you can pick them all you want, but you don't even know who their coach is. Are they going to bring back? They're not going to bring back old man Chara and Parise and I mean,
Parise they will because Parise is if he's on your fourth line, he scored 16 goals this year and he had horrible luck the first 2 months of the year when he was creating. Like he's a guy who's like, you know what, he's on a vet min type thing, like just over $1 million. He's fine in your bottom six. That's not the problem of this team. They need a guy who can play on the first line with Matthew Barzal. They need a guy who can play on defense on the second pair with Noah Dobson. Because as much as the scoring screwed them over last year, I think that not having a proper second pair defenseman to play with the Islanders, having to roll out Chara and Green, I wouldn't mind if Chara and Green alternated as a sixth defenseman. The issue was they had to play both of them. Mm-hmm. and one of them in the top four, which just can't happen in today's game. And for me, it was tough. So if they get someone who could play there, any decent puck moving defenseman, I mean, like not even that good of just a decent defenseman, because Noah Dobson will be able to rush the play. He'll be able to do everything. Their top four, if they get a solid defenseman, could be Pelech Polak, which we know can be one of the top pairs in the NHL. You get Noah Dobson with a solid defenseman who Dobson had one of the breakout campaigns of the year. And then you have a third pair of this young kid, Robin Salo, and Scott Mayfield, who's been just a steady right-hand D. That's a really solid defense core, lets the Islanders get back to their game, and it still gives them the ability to add up front. I think if you fix those things, they could be a competitive team. I think Lane Lambert's going to have a lot. He's Trotz's protege. He's going to have a lot of Trotz elements in this game, but I think there's going to be enough little tweaks because he's got his own style, his own personality. So I don't think they'll get completely away from the structure that got them to being a good team, but I do think they'll have a little bit, more, difference in the game. Maybe they let Matt Barzal be a little more creative with his playmaking and stuff like that. And if they get someone who can play with him, that would be a heck of a lot of fun. I really wanted Kevin Fiala, but clearly that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Fiala, we've got our buddy Ian here, who's a Minnesota fan. What did you think of the Fiala trade, Donnie?
I thought it was a pretty solid return. I mean, I think you had to know that. I mean, it was pretty obvious Fiala was going to go. I think it was a pretty good deal for both sides. I mean, the Kings, I really liked the move. They needed some scoring up front. They got career years for guys like Trevor Moore and Philip Deneau and Alex Iafallo and all those guys in their top six. But that's not stuff you really want to sustain. You get a guy who put up 30 plus goals, 85 points this year, and has been on a 30 goal pace the last 3 years. Granted, 2 of them were shortened, seasons, but he played at a 30-goal level. I think that's huge for them, and they didn't have to give up. So they gave up the 19th pick and, a solid prospect, but for them, they have an opportunity to be competitive now, which I really think they have. And the deal you knew was going to come somewhere between $7 and $8 million a year, which for a guy 25 years old, I think that's worth money to invest in. And for Minnesota, I just, they got a prospect, they got a first-round pick, and so they can get some young, cheaper talent into that system. Look, they're in a tough spot. They've been, they're in a tough cap situation right now. So I don't know what they're going to bring back in terms of their goalies, because I think Talbot, I know Fleury's free agent. I think Talbot is too. They got some.
Talbot's gone. Talbot's gone.
Talbot,
so I'm
saying they got to bring
he
back.
He has demanded a trade.
Oh, I didn't even. He has term left, or
okay. I don't know that for a fact, but when his wife puts out the post that she put out, I'm pretty sure he went in there at the end of the season and said, "I don't want to play for you guys anymore."
I mean, look, I can get it from his perspective. He was good for them the last 2 years, and then they drove and trade for Fleury at the deadline, and they start him in the playoffs when, granted, Fleury won a bunch of games, but he didn't really have. He had a sub 900 save percentage with the Wild during his time, before the trade deadline, and then gets thrown into that game 6, without really a shot. And, as much as, that first Letty goal probably shouldn't have gone in from Cam Talbot, but I can't blame him for that. I mean, the Wild had nothing that night. I
told, when this trade happened, I told Ian, our buddy Ian here, I said, I think this is the worst trade that Minnesota could have made. You were going to have, what are you telling your goalkeeper? What are you telling your number one, especially not only that, you're trading your future away for now. Do you think that this trade is going to beat Colorado or beat St. Louis? I
didn't think it pushed him over the top. I think,
it
Jacob
didn't
Middleton,
it didn't push him to the net.
When they got Jacob Middleton,
it set him back.
That was a good deal. That was a guy who can be on your blue line for a bunch of years, younger guy, good acquisition, like solid top 4 guy. Giving up real assets for Fleury, who, maybe, on the off chance, he, got his magic back together like he had in Vegas, in Pittsburgh and stuff like that. Maybe he was able to get lightning in a bottle again. It just didn't feel like worthwhile to, take that trade. But I don't know. For me, obviously, Minnesota couldn't get past it, but the first round. But
there's other trades that they could have made that would have helped them beat St. Louis.
I think so too. I think so with the assets that they gave up. I don't think goaltending was the thing that was separating them so much. I think, getting another guy to maybe play on that second line with Boldy and Fiala, could have been
then Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, or someone else on the back end, which I didn't think they needed really to add more after Middleton.
What cost them that series when it comes down to it was the forecheck. Once the Blues got Bennington in, and Bennington played that third defenseman where he took the forecheck away from Minnesota, and then St. Louis's forecheck was so strong that Minnesota could never control the puck. That your goalie's not going to save that.
Yeah, it was just it felt they had bigger issues to cover. And look, goaltending was a problem at the time. They were on a bit of a slide, and Talbot hadn't been playing great. Neither had Kakkonen, but it just didn't seem like that. It didn't seem like Fleury was the guy that was going to do it. The name and maybe catching lightning in a bottle. It just didn't seem like it based on the season he had in Chicago. But that's a whole different thing for Minnesota to figure out. They're in a tough cap situation right now. They got some roster spots to fill up, but I do think the trade was good for them. I think they got what they could have gotten in this situation, knowing that they can't take salary back. I think they did pretty fine, getting a nice prospect and ultimately getting a pick that they could either use or trade for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that, guys. My internet's like going in and out on me. So Ian says Russo has reported nothing of the sort. Burns an OBS kind of guy. If Talbot was that torn up, he would have been gone already. I don't know.
Ian, I know for a fact when that trade was made, Talbot did have a sit down with Billy Guerin and talk to him. And the question was asked, why did you trade for Marc-Andre Fleury? I don't know much more than that. And I don't know if he was just angry and mad or if he just wanted to know what the hell was going on. but he did have a sit down with Billy Guerin.
Right. Yeah. I think that, and his wife, that post his wife.
Well, I can tell you, Guy, a lot of times you can see posts from girlfriends and fiancés and wives, but a lot of times the wives and fiancés get more upset about a situation than the guys do. And that's just the way it is sometimes. And,
Yeah.
and you know, I look at when a girlfriend posts something of an NHL player or a brother or sister or a father, I don't always believe it because it's coming from the aspect of a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a relative. And that relative may know their brother, sister, their mom, dad, whatever, cousin, uncle, but they don't know truly what's going on in that person's head when it comes to what's going on in the ice. Maybe she's right. Maybe she was upset about it more than Cam Talbot was, which is quite possible. But I think the two teams that are going to have the hardest to have good years again are going to in the Western Conference, the Central, is going to be the Avalanche and the Wild. Avalanche are going to lose a bunch of players. Can they get guys to replace some guys? Yeah, they can. You know, they can definitely get guys to replace some guys. Like Guy said, they got $26 million in cap space. And I think they've got, between RFAs and UFAs, they've got 9 RFAs and UFAs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I was going to pull up their cap friendly right now.
Yep. Some of those big name guys, the bigger guys in the second, third lines, some of those guys will be gone. But you know what? If you've got a good coach, and Bednar is a very, very good coach, he knows what players he wants to fit in his system. He knows what he wants to get done. The Avalanche will probably fall a little bit, but I don't see him falling more than a couple spots in the Central Conference.
Oh, I disagree with that. I think that they're gonna struggle to make the playoffs.
No way.
If 4 teams have to make the play, if 4 teams, I only think 3 teams are going to make the playoffs from the Central next season. Minnesota's taking a step back. Colorado's taking a step back. Dallas is taking a step back. Nashville's taking a step back. The only teams that I see taking steps forward are St. Louis and Winnipeg. You have Chicago and Arizona that have both said we're going for Bedard. So,
will Winnipeg even step forward if Scheifele wants out, and then they might move Wheeler? And it seems like they are also on the precipice of potentially, getting torn down. So I don't even know.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. To me, it's St. Louis's division to win or lose.
It is, but one thing you're not looking at too. Nobody's talking about Calgary. They've got a couple key guys that they could lose. Or a couple of key guys coming.
Yeah, but they're in the Pacific, not the Central.
No, you're talking about the Western Conference. You're talking about the Pacific 5 teams making it in. Calgary is going to lose some guys, and I'm going to tell you something about the Sutter system. I've talked to some guys that have been in that Brian Sutter, Dwayne Sutter, all these, these guys is coaching systems, and after a little bit, it wears on you. He's a good coach, but that Sutter system can wear certain players down over a couple of years. Yeah. I think Calgary will be good, but I just don't see them being as good. I think the only team that's got a chance in the Central to be as good is the Blues. And I'm not saying that because I'm a homer. I'm saying that because you look at all these other teams in the Pacific and in the Central. I think Nashville will be a little bit better than they were. Are they going to go gangbusters? I don't see it, but I think they'll be better. That's one team that I think will be better. But I think, I don't know, Guy, if you heard me or not, but I think the Wild and the Avalanche are going to be the teams that take the biggest dips.
Oh, yeah. No, I
don't
do
know
see
if the
that.
Avalanche are going to be a dip enough to miss the playoffs. I just think there's a lot of talent there.
No, I didn't say they're going to miss the playoffs.
I think Sakic will spend their money wisely. Their defense core is locked up right now. Outside of Josh Manson. So I don't know if they want to bring him back. But right now they still have Makar, Johnson, Girard, Taves, and Byram all locked up. They have a lot of forwards that are, free agents. Arturi Lekkonen's an RFA, so I feel like they'll try to bring him back. He was amazing. They're probably going to lose Burakovsky, or they're going to, potentially Burakovsky, Nichushkin, might lose 1 or 2 of them. Kemper also.
Nichushkin is the one that I think that they'll go after. I think Burakovsky's gone. Kotler's gone.
I think with the way that he got healthy scratched a couple of times in the playoffs, I think he's kind of on his way out.
And Ian, like I said, Russo just, like you said, reported that they did have a sit down, but I'm not saying that Colorado and the Wild are going to fall off and not make the playoffs. I'm not saying that, Ian. What I'm saying is I don't see the Wild finishing second in the Central. They're going to drop a little bit. Where they make the playoffs? Probably. But unless they make some good moves, some smart moves to bring in some more guys, it could be a couple spot drop. But I think they're definitely going to drop to third or fourth in the Central Division. It's just the way this division goes. You'll have a team that sticks around the top for a couple of years. Then you'll have a team that look good. They'll be jumping up to the top two, the second seed. But, I'm not being a homer here. I don't think the Blues, number one, can make a bunch of moves. Number two, I don't think they need to.
Yeah. When you look at St. Louis's roster, really, they have five guys that need to be signed, right? Two of them you're not going to sign. You're letting them walk. Husso and Bozak, right? So there's two. You have guys in your system that are cheaper and better, right? Then you have your two free agents. Actually, you have six guys. You have your two restricted free agents, Mikola and
Perunovic.
They're RFAs. You're going to sign them. They're going to get a little bit more. Okay, you get those two signed, and then you have two guys left. You have Letty and Perron, right? Letty, I like what Letty brought to the Blues, but I think you can still get a Letty type return for cheaper.
Oh yeah, he wants too much.
Yeah,
right. He's a $5.5 million guy, $5.5, $5.6 million guy. I think you can get, and now we only played 2.75, and that's what everybody has to look at. Detroit paid the other half of his salary.
Mm-hmm.
So really, when you look at him as a $5 million guy, no, he wasn't a $5 million. He was a 2.75. And I still think
actually, they didn't have to pay him that because more than half the season was over when they got it. It's prorated. They paid under.
They were paying him a quarter of his salary.
Yeah, they paid about 1.4 million, 1.5.
Yeah, well, they paid half of what was left. Yeah. But still, the cap number was half.
Yeah, exactly.
So but at that, you can find Letty-esque guys out there.
Yeah, you can.
Or $3 million or under, right? So to me, I let Letty walk.
I do too.
Right? Yep. I let Letty walk because I think there's defensive guys out there that are there that can get in there, and that one and the Blues. I'm sorry, every Avalanche fan will tell you the Blues. Oh my God, bring the same team back, and we're going to kick your ass from here to eternity. And no, you're not, because you're not going to have half of what you had. And second of all, and I've said this, and I haven't had anybody dispute me, Kemper is by far one of the worst goalies to ever win the Cup.
Yeah, he's a good goalie.
Recently.
Yeah. Is he top of the line goalie? No.
He was. He just hasn't right now.
Yeah.
But I think an interesting comparable for this coming season, the Avalanche, let's see what they do, is kind of like the 2011 Blackhawks team. The first year after they won the Cup, because they won the Cup in 2010 and then kind of got gutted. They lost a lot of pieces. They lost Bufflin, Ladd, a lot of, those depth guys they lost. And then
they kept their core.
They kept the core, but then ended up losing, a lot
all
of
all that experience.
Did you just see the last thing, guy? To get Chychrun, they want to give up Barbashev, Perunovic, and a pick.
No, I wouldn't do it.
No way in hell I'm doing that. No way. Hey, Chris, Chychrun, not a top pairing. He's probably a 3 or a 4. He's not worth that much. Trust me. All these people just falling apart over Chychrun because he's a young guy and he's cheap. He's cheaper.
Exactly what it is.
He's decent. He's a good defenseman. Is he a guy you want to give 3 or 4 pieces for? No, you don't want to give that much money for Jacob Chychrun. Trust me. And, people have told me, well, he's on a bad team. Think how much better he would be with the Blues. Guys, he's not going to make that much of a difference for this team. And he's just a good defenseman. That's it. That's all he is.
Yeah.
By the way, Ian, maybe tomorrow, bud. I'm way over an hour now, so maybe tomorrow we can have you on, my friend. We'll work on that. Let me know. I'm not for Chychrun at any price. I'll tell you what. There's a name out there that interests me in the defensive core. I think a lot of people would say, huh?
I know who you're going to say, but go ahead.
I bet you don't. I'd almost bet that you don't. There's a free agent out there that I think the Blues could get that would absolutely help their core and get him cheap. And I mean cheap, like $2 million. for 2 years, $4 million total. And I'm gonna bet when I bring this name up, I'm gonna get a lot of WTFs. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
PK Subban.
Guy. PK Subban is okay. You ever went to the store and you've got a package of ramen that says Best Buy July 2022, and you've got another package of ramen set next to it that says Best Buy 2002? Which one are you going to pick? PK Subban isn't even a quarter of a shadow of himself. I don't want PK Subban for any reason.
And that's fair. I get that. But I look at Subban chasing a ring. And a guy chasing a ring, I mean, a guy really, really chasing a ring can bring a lot. And think about this. If you could put Subban on second line or the third line defense with his with that back check and that forecheck and just his ability to be on the puck, to be a defensive defenseman, because that's what he is now. He's not the offensive defenseman he used to be. He's a defensive defenseman. If you could bring him in for $2 million for 2 years to be that defensive defenseman, I'd take that chance. I really would. I would do what we did with James Neal. I would bring him in.
I just think it's hard. I think it's hard to justify if you're going to play him on the second. I don't think he's built to play top 4 minutes anymore. You could play him on the third. If you want to try and experiment with him on the third pair, that's one thing. But to bring him in on the second pair, that's just to rely on him for those big minutes, and stuff like that. It's hard, for him at this stage of his career. His body's deteriorated a lot, and it's a lot of like muscle injury stuff. It's just tough things to see.
Yeah.
With a guy
I get it. It's just something I'm looking at outside the box. Trying to think outside the box a little bit.
His cap hit is $9 million.
Wasn't he a free agent now, or he has one more year left?
He's a free agent, and I think he knows that he's not going to get anywhere near that.
He wants $4 or $5 million from what I'm being told, and the Blues can't pay him that.
Yeah, he won't. I don't think he'll get offered that. It'll be a Hoffman-like thing. Everybody thought Hoffman in 21 was going to get $6 to $8 million, and the best offer out there was $4. Mm-hmm. And that was with the Blues for 1 year. He took it.
Hoffman was a factor of also the flat cap, like right at the beginning.
Right. Well, the cap is still flat. And I brought this up the other day. And I think I was talking to Lance about it. When you think of when GMs are doing these caps or looking at this, the contracts that you're signing today are not for today. You're looking at what you think the cap is going to be 4 years down the road.
100%. With like the Marner
cap
and stuff
this
like that,
year,
they got screwed. The
cap this year was originally projected. You go back 4 years. Cap this year was projected to be $86.5 million. All the contracts that you have right now are at that $86.5 million projection. You're looking at another 4 years until you get to that cap projection now. So you've lost 8 years. These players are going to have to understand that. Right? These players are absolutely going to have to understand that what they thought they were going to get and what they were going to get are two totally different things.
No, the flat cap, it's interesting, and I've been seeing things the way it's been talked about. Like maybe it'll go up $1 million or, less than $1 million over the next couple of years. But when it hits, when it spikes up, it's going to jump up like $5-6 million that first off season. It's going to jump up by a lot of money that first off season where the cap finally goes back. It's kind of going to be a similar situation somewhat to what the NBA had in 2016 when the cap.
Well, it can only, if I remember right from the CBA, it can only go up a maximum of $1.5 million for the next 3 years. This year being the first year of that.
Because I think maybe after those 3 years, like it's gonna, spring up. Like,
well, that puts it at what I'm talking about. 4 years down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that. But like, look, as someone who's, lost a top 4 defenseman, we all lost players because of, the cap crunch and the flat cap, losing Devon Toews was tough. And teams like Toronto are being screwed over because they signed Marner, hoping that the cap would be at that, higher number at this point, and the 11 million wouldn't be as, harsh of a number. So it's a hard situation for that. But one name I was thinking about is specifically for the Islanders. and their second pair thing, and I know you guys are Blues guys, so you at least had a chance to watch him, is potentially Vince Dunn. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on him? I mean, I don't know if you saw what from him from Seattle this year, but what's just the general look on him?
I'm going to let you start.
I'm going to tell you something about Vince Dunn. If you want offense, you want a guy that can pass the puck, can move the puck, that's Vince Dunn. If you want him to play any defense at all, you're screwed. He's terrible defensively. And I know people will tell me, well, because Seattle was a bad team. That's why he's I think he was a minus 30 or 40, something like that. That's why he was a minus. He wasn't a good defenseman with the Blues. The only thing he helped the Blues with was offense. I mean, if you could get Vince Dunn cheap and put him on the third line, you might be okay. But Vince Dunn, if the Islanders are looking for a guy that's going to really help them win, it's not Vince Dunn in my mind. The guy that I want is Zadorov from the Flames. 27 years old.
Zadorov's good. I'm a big fan of Brett Kulak.
Yeah.
If Edmonton can't keep him, I'd love him, because I think he'd be perfect on that, second pair lefty. Yeah.
But you know what? Zadorov's going to have he's got a big market coming up. There's going to be a lot of teams that want him from his size.
Defense is, I was looking at the defensive free agents on Cap Friendly yesterday, and there's not a lot out there.
Nope.
I mean, the number five going by AAV, the number 5 defenseman is Letty.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a great free agent class for defensemen, which is why you might have to look to trades and stuff like that. I know Vegas is thinking about. I feel like they'd want to move Martinez, but they also they're looking at moving Nick Hague, who is an RFA who could get a nice return and could be a really good young.
I'll tell you somebody that I think the Islanders need to move on from is Kakko. I think
Islanders.
Oh, don't they have Kakko or who?
No, it's the Rangers.
No,
that's Rangers. Okay.
Well, yeah, they kind of burned that bridge potentially with Gallant scratching him for that last game against Tampa.
Yeah.
He's an RFA. I don't know what he's gonna. That's gonna be an interesting situation to see what the Rangers do there.
Yeah, he's a guy that it's time. But it's just like with me with Koskin. Clem Costin. I just think that, he's had his chances and he's just never panned out.
No, he hasn't. He's played in 40 some odd games. How's that his chance?
But that's the thing. He's come up and he's never been able to stay up here. He's come up and gotten sent right back down.
The reason he's come up is for injuries. If it wasn't for injuries, he'd probably only have 15 games in the NHL. I mean, you can't judge a guy with that kind of talent and say he's a wash.
This was the first season that he came up and he wasn't a penalty machine. But down in the AHL, he was a penalty machine.
Yeah, but you know what? Some young guys, when they come from Russia, it takes them some time to get used to playing in the AHL, in the NHL. Because you want my personal opinion? I personally think the AHL is better than the KHL. I've watched
and that's fair.
A lot of KHL games, and there might be, if you average it out over the whole league, there might be 2 to 3 guys on each team that could play in the NHL if you average it out. The AHL, there's a lot of guys that could probably make the roster. Maybe they may be lower end guys. And I don't want Costin guy, but if they trade him, that's great. But if you said, hey, would you rather have Capo Kakko or Clem Costin? I'll take Capo Kakko in a heartbeat.
Kakko also, he had that line really got it together at the end of the year and in the playoffs. They really did. And so I think he, maybe, I don't know in terms of his contract what he got, but he finally showed, for these young guys who came up, and played, during the COVID pause and after the last few years, it's been a horrible situation for them. So like the fact that Lafreniere and Kakko and Hedel, they all kind of finally gelled once the team was going, and they really were a huge reason they got past Carolina. So it's kind of interesting to see, Kakko could be okay, maybe he's not going to be the second overall pick that he was, in that draft, but he still could be a really solid player, in your middle top 6 type thing. He's still only really young. What's he, 21, 22?
23. Costin's 23.
Are
you talking about Kakko?
Kakko,
yeah, I think he's 22 or 23.
So he was drafted in 2019.
He just turned 21 in February, and he was making about $3.5 million on his contract. The Rangers, for some reason, think that and he's kind of he has to take it unless he wants to sit off. A lot of people in New York think they can get him for $2 to $2 million.
I don't think he can get that. I think he's going to be.
Yeah, you're going to have to offer him the step up as an RFA from his $3.5 million deal, 3.6, whatever he was making, because it was
a qualifying offer is an increase of 10%.
Yeah, so they're going to have to offer him almost $4 million.
Yeah, and so it's going to be curious to see what the term is. You know, they have to, plan for Lafreniere, who could have a really big year this year, who's going to be an RFA after next year, and Heedle needs a contract right now. Scored 10 goals for them in the playoffs. So they're in a very interesting cap situation. They went from, having all the cap in the world and, ways to spend it to kind of being in a bit of a cap crunch and being in a really tight one really soon with their additions. But they have, they have a team that could be competitive, the Rangers. I obviously watched a lot of them this year, especially in the playoffs. And so, kind of a know thy enemy type thing. But, so they're a really interesting team. I just don't, with them, I just feel I'm skeptical about the way they played this year, because Shesterkin was unbelievable, had one of the greatest goaltending seasons we've seen. I just didn't think he played enough games to be in the Hart conversation personally, but I think he deserved to be second, based on his level of play. The Rangers were really good they didn't play good defense. They played a lot of good, we're going to go into a shell and just try to block everything. And just hope it doesn't get through and bounce off something, and Shesterkin will make the save, and a lot of odd man rushes. And their 5-on-play got a bit good at the end of the regular season. It got better. They were awful all year, but then it kind of went crashing down in the playoffs that they were not a good 5-on-5 team. And for the Rangers, it's going to be interesting to see if Gallant, if they can actually fix their style of play to play more consistently, because if they don't get the same level of goaltending from Shesterkin, not even if he's not Vezina quality, if he's not, historically good, are they going to be a 50-something win team that gets to the third round? It's going to be, I just don't know how well constructed they are at the moment, but I think they need better play drivers at centers. Zibanejad's great as your one center, but that's pretty much it. They brought in Kopp, but their center depth's pretty weak. I know they want to bring him back, but there's really not a lot going on there. They're losing Strome because they're not going to pay him the money that he wants, as they shouldn't. But, so they're going to be in a tough situation center-wise. And I just don't know. I just don't see it from them going forward. I see them being good. It's just, they have to play this smart.
Yeah, so the last thing I want to talk about, I talked a little bit about this, was something that Buffalo did. And I have a huge, huge problem with this. Buffalo made a trade for Ben Bishop and a pick. I have a problem with that. The problem is Buffalo is skirting the salary floor, right? Ben Bishop's contract is being paid by an insurance company. Yet he goes on their
IR.
He goes on as an IR, not an LTIR, an IR, so they can reach the salary floor without paying
they're not
$5
going to be
million of
close
the
enough for the
contract.
cap to be using LTIR. They just want to use them to get to the floor. They did that with the Islanders. They took Johnny Boychuk's contract right after they traded Eichel, to get themselves back to the cap floor, which was actually a very smart move by Lou. For everything that he does bad, this guy, he understands the little nuances of the salary cap. I think, though, these type of trades, like LTIR-ing guys, and, trading them they can't retire because of the cap recapture, and then, they have to trade them off, to sit on the IR for the rest of their career. And then they officially retire, like what's happening with Weber. It's a product of the hard cap, which is just so dumb for this league, in my opinion. I think something with a luxury tax similar to what the NBA has would be eons better for the NHL. And you'd avoid these type of things because, teams could pay a little bit extra. The teams that have money or want to invest in their team could pay a little bit extra. Like David Clarkson was on LTIR for the Leafs, and Nathan Horton was on LTIR for the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets, when they signed Horton, didn't insure his contract. Like you said, Bishop is getting paid by an insurance company. So they basically just swapped contracts purely because the Leafs were like, we have all the money in the world. We can spend it. We don't care. And the Blue Jackets were like, Clarkson's contract's insured. They took on the bigger cap hit, I believe, of the two.
Yeah, I think they did too. Donnie, one thing I think you're probably not looking at here, and Guy and I remember it, years ago when there wasn't a hard cap, the teams in the big markets always sign the big players. They were the ones that normally made it to the cup or strong in the playoffs. Smaller market teams like Minnesota, St. Louis, in cities like that under 500,000 in the city, million metro, they suffered. That they couldn't compete with those teams. And I'm going to tell you right now, if there was no hard cap, here's what teams would be good: the Rangers, the Islanders. You would see the Kings good. You would probably see Washington good. You'd see Toronto good. You would see probably 7 teams that were really good, 6, 7 teams that were really good. Then you see about 12 teams to 15 teams that were okay, good. Then you'd see about seven teams that were just terrible. I mean, terrible. I'm talking about 20-win teams. And that's why the NHL went to this hard cap. Could you do a hybrid of it? Maybe, and say, okay, we're not going to have a hard cap, but you can only, if you do go over, you can only go over this much.
That's what I want. I just think the fact that it's like 81.5, million right now, and that's the hardest thing, whatever else. The fact that there's no flexibility, for not every, the Leafs and the Rangers and the teams that have money are going to spend it. That's how it is, in every sport if they want. But I think for the fact that there are teams that, are kind of in that middle area, like you were saying, that, they get a team that, maybe they're like, what, this is the team to invest in for a couple of years. You don't want like no salary cap, which leads you to situations like baseball where players are making as much as certain teams' payrolls.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want what the NHL is right now. And the NFL is the exception in terms of the hard cap, in my opinion, because there's just careers are so short, rosters are so thin. Like they need a hard number to make that. It's so complicated. The NHL salary cap is complicated. The NFL one's a million times harder for me to understand. And I've tried. But
well, I disagree with the salary tax. I really do. And my problem with the salary tax is you look at baseball. They have the salary tax, the luxury tax, and you look at the difference between the team at the top and the team at the bottom. It's Grand Canyon-esque, right? I don't like that.
Like 50 million to 260 or 70 million.
Yeah. It's too much. I love Tony Twist. I absolutely love Tony Twist. Tony Twist was an amazing player. Tony Twist was not a $7 million player, but in the salary era he played in, that's what he was going to get paid. Before his car accident, before his motorcycle accident, he came on the show and told us he had a $7 million contract waiting for him in Philadelphia. Is he a $7 million guy? No. I love him to death, but he's not a $7 million guy. And that's what's going to happen if you put in a luxury tax. You're going to have these mid-level guys get priced out of the market for everybody else. And that's it creates more problems than it's worth. Yeah. I know why everyone hates the salary cap. I get it. I know why players hate it. I get it. But I got to tell you something. Right now, when it comes to who's between 1 and 30 or 32, whatever your league has, which teams have the chance where a team can go from the last place, the first place, or vice versa? It's the NHL.
Or the
no
NFL.
Other league has that.
Or the NFL, because you remember the Rams were like 4-12 the year before they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was there. I don't know how close they are to that now. But I mean, again, like you said, they're a different
half
beast.
The teams that make the playoffs the year before don't make it the next year. It's very hard.
Here's another thing, Donnie, that's bad is if you have no salary cap, you're going to have guys will make more, but the MLB brings in so much money, more money than the NHL. NFL brings in so much more money than MLB does, and the NBA brings even more money than the NFL does. If they try to have a somewhat of a hybrid system, it's players. There's only so much revenue to be made, and what's going to happen if, let's say, they didn't have a cap? Matthews isn't making 13 million. He's making 35 to 40 million. Tickets are going to go from top level seats of $60 to $300. Then
I think there needs to be a cap in place. I think that's the best system to go. I just think it's too stringent right now. The way it was implemented and the way it is at this point, needs to be. I mean, Bettman's never going to do it because the salary cap is his baby. That's what he did for the owners. They love him for it. But at this point, I just think there needs to be, if there was a little bit more things, I don't think you'd see the LTIR stuff.
I'd like to see a 15% 15% for signing your own players.
That's interesting. That's an interesting concept.
Right.
So, and then that makes the ability to, sign and trade a guy, to trade for a guy's rights and then sign him to a deal, as opposed to something else, then you can get a little bit of that extra cap room. Teams
Well,
get
to
assets.
me, no, that wouldn't be your own player. To re-sign your own player, he has to have played with you
He has to have played
for the last 2 years, right? Or a year,
Or
a
the last
full
year.
82 games.
Or had to play a game in the last season or something. You had to be on the roster before a certain point.
It's got to be a full. To me, it's like, okay, you make a trade for Letty, and now you say Letty's your own player. No, Letty's not your own player. The guys that started on day one, those are your own players. If a guy gets traded, that 15%, 10%, whatever it was, that goes away. That also keeps more. That changes the trade deadline
more.
Huh?
It keeps your homegrown talent in more. It keeps
homegrown talent a lot more.
Keep your core.
Oh, guys, we are way, way late. So I loved it, man. Hey, Don, thanks for coming on, man. And like I said,
I've been wanting to come on. I just hadn't gotten a chance yet. So tonight I was like, oh, I could actually hop on. So I was listening for a bit, and then I'm like, all right, let me at least join.
Yeah, no problem. I put it in there. I always have 1 or 2 spots open. If someone's available, I let them come on. If I get overloaded, I'll apologize and do the best I can. But again, Don, thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you enjoyed our conversations.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to talk to some good guys about hockey, it's always a good time for me.
I appreciate that, and I hope you don't think I'm a complete idiot.
Nah, you're good. You're a good guy.
Okay, well, Don and Lance, thanks so much for showing up. Hey, everybody, this is Guy, the Y Blues fan, for Donnie and for Lance, saying aloha and mahalo, and I can't wait to see you all on the next Blue Note Fan Report. Don't forget that I'm bleeding blue with you.